You ever look at a situation, maybe it's your own, maybe it's a friend's, and just think, how on earth can someone so smart, so put together, stay in a relationship that is so clearly bad for them? It just doesn't make any sense, right? Well, let's get into it, because the answer has nothing to do with being smart or being weak. It's all about our psychology, our brain chemistry, and some really deep-seated human wiring.
It always starts with that little feeling in your gut, doesn't it? That deep-down sense that something just isn't right. Your friends probably see it, your family might be dropping hints. And, if you're really honest with yourself in those quiet moments, you see it too.
And yet, you stay. And that's the part that's so confusing, even to you. The knowledge is there, but your actions don't line up. It feels completely illogical. You're probably asking yourself, I know better, so why am I not doing better?
So let's just get one thing perfectly clear, right here, right now. This is not about you being stupid. It is not about you being weak. I mean, think about it. In every other part of your life, you're probably killing it. You make great, rational choices. This is not some kind of character flaw.
So what is it? Why does this one person seem to have a key that bypasses all of your alarm systems, all your logical defenses? Well, the answer is pretty wild. It's hidden in the way your brain is actually designed to connect with people and how that very system can be hijacked.
Okay, so first up, we have to talk about brain chemistry, because what feels like this huge, messy, emotional problem is, when you get right down to it, a powerful chemical one. Your brain is running a program in the background that you're probably not even aware of.
So get this, the neuroscientist Helen Fisher, she made this absolutely startling discovery. She put people who are madly in love into a brain scanner, and what she found is what you're seeing here. The brain on romantic love looks, for all intents and purposes, identical to the brain of someone on cocaine. No joke. The same reward centers light up. It's this flood of dopamine and oxytocin. It's a hugely powerful and, addictive cocktail.
But here's where it gets really crucial. In a healthy, stable relationship, that chemical reward is pretty consistent. It's a nice, steady flow. But in a toxic relationship, that system gets weaponized. That hot and cold cycle, where they're amazing one day and awful the next, that creates what's called an unpredictable reward, and your brain goes absolutely nuts for it, producing these intense, erratic dopamine spikes that are way more powerful and obsessive than any steady reward.
It is the exact same psychology that keeps a gambler glued to a slot machine in Vegas. You're not pulling the lever over and over for the pain of losing. You're doing it because sometimes it pays out. You keep pulling because of the maybe. It's that maybe this time it'll be different that gets you hooked, and your brain becomes obsessed with chasing that unpredictable high.
All right, so that's the brain chemistry, but it gets deeper, because on top of that chemical addiction, another really powerful psychological process starts to form. It's called a trauma bond, and this is where things get really, really tricky.
Now, you've probably heard of Stockholm Syndrome, right? It's where hostages start to feel this weird loyalty, even affection for their captors. Well, what researchers figured out is that the very same neurological process can happen in toxic relationships. They just call it a trauma bond.
And here's the insidious way it works. One person causes you intense pain or distress, and then they turn around and they're the one to comfort you. Your poor nervous system has no idea what to do. It just knows, I was in pain, and now this person is making me feel better. So over time, your brain forges this incredibly powerful and incredibly confusing link. The source of my pain is also my only source of relief. Leaving starts to feel neurologically, physically impossible.
So, as if the brain chemistry and the trauma bond weren't enough to deal with, there's a third layer to this trap, and this is where your own brilliant, logical mind actually starts working against you, building a perfectly rational-sounding case for staying put.
So, in the world of economics, there's this idea called the sunk cost fallacy. Basically, it means that you're more likely to keep pouring money or effort into a failing project simply because you've already invested so much. You just can't stomach the thought of all that previous effort being for nothing. And this applies so powerfully to relationships.
And this is what it sounds like in your head. The internal monologue kicks in. You start thinking about the time. I gave 5 years of my life to this. The sheer weight of that investment, it just feels too heavy to walk away from.
And then you think about all the sacrifices. The parts of yourself you sanded down, the compromises you made, the things you gave up for them. You haven't just invested your time, you've invested pieces of your actual identity.
And right there, that's the sound of the trap closing shot.
You realize you're not staying because you truly believe in a happy future. You're staying to justify a painful past. You're desperately trying to make all that past investment count for something, which is a total logical fallacy that your brain just clings to.
And all of this leads to what might just be the most subtle and the most devastating part of this whole experience. These relationships, they don't just hurt you. They can fundamentally steal who you are.
There's a term for it, identity erosion. And it happens so slowly you barely notice. You stop sharing opinions that you know will lead to a fight. You start to drift away from the friends who knew the old you. You kind of lose interest in hobbies that used to light you up. Bit by bit, piece by piece, you shrink.
And what you're left with is this terrifying reality. The relationship isn't just a part of your life anymore, it is your life. Your entire identity is wrapped up in it. So the thought of leaving, it's not just a breakup. It feels like you'd be stepping off a cliff into an empty void, like you'd be erasing yourself.
Okay, so we've laid out the entire trap. The chemistry, the trauma bond, the sunk cost, the theft of self. It sounds impossible, right? So how in the world does anyone actually get out? Let's talk about the path to freedom.
First, and you absolutely have to hear this, logic will not save you. You cannot just think your way out of this. You can't just make a pros and cons list and have it stick. Telling yourself this is a bad situation is like telling someone deep in addiction, drugs are bad for you. Yeah, they know. It doesn't override the deep chemical and neurological wiring.
So the real way out is more of a three-step process. First, you need to find what's called a felt experience. Don't just tell yourself you deserve better. Go spend time with people or in places where you actually feel safe and calm and like yourself again. You need to remember what better feels like in your body. Second, you have to start restoring your identity. Just one thing. Call one old friend. Pick up one old hobby. Anything that was yours before this all started. And third, you have to reframe the pain. That agony you feel when you leave, that's not a sign you've lost your soulmate. That is the feeling of your brain going through chemical detox.
Please, burn this into your mind, for when that urge to go back feels like it's going to swallow you whole. That intense, desperate ache that you feel is not a measure of your love. It is a measure of your withdrawal. It's a biological process, and just like any other detox, it will eventually pass if you can just hold on.
So look, why does all of this matter? Because staying in a relationship like this doesn't make you dumb or weak. It just makes human. Your brain's most basic systems got hijacked. But understanding the mechanics of the trap, the chemistry, the conditioning, all of it, that is the first, and I mean the most powerful step to disarming it. Because the moment you can see the bars of the cage, you're not just a prisoner anymore. You're an escape artist who's starting to plan their way out.